Hey, what up, guys? So, hitting you up this morning. Want to get to the 140-pound junior welterweights. This is the next top 10 we're doing, year-end top 10 here. Looking at the best guys at 140. This is a division where, who's some popular names? Really, not a lot of big popular names are residing in this division this year going in, but there's a lot of young guys, and this division is really wide open. Young guys that are about to really make a name for himself. Right now, 140 is also doing the World Boxing Super Series Season 2. We're heading into the semifinals in the next couple months here. So pretty exciting time at 140. But it definitely has changed from last year, that are out, because we have a lot of guys that are out. So I want to get to those real quick that are out of the top 10 at 140 that we're in heading into the year. First and foremost is undefeated Mikey Garcia. He previously was number one, Adrian Broner at 140, and so I had him ranked here, and I had him ranked at lightweight. Yates for the 140-pound title, winning a championship in a fourth weight class was his goal, and he did that. He accomplished it. He knocked Yates down, who was an undefeated fighter going in, knocked him down in the 6th round, and got a clear-cut unanimous decision, a good performance, and became world champion at 140. He was thinking about staying there, and was setting up his mandatory defense, and then he decided to vacate the title and move back down to 135 and attempt to unify belts down there. So that, to me, signaled that he's more of a lightweight anyways, which he has been the whole time, so he should stay there. But now he's even moving up from lightweight to try to win a title at welterweight. So this guy's jumping all over the place. I'm still ranking him at lightweight, where he's highly rated, but I dropped him out of the top 10 here at 140 because of it. But next, he's moving all the way. Like I said, he's moving up to attempt the world title against Errol Spence, which is a big challenge. But we'll see. You got to give him props for trying it out. We'll see if it works out for him. Okay, next up that's out is Omar Figueroa Jr. This guy went in. He's still an undefeated former lightweight champion, but he went in. He had beaten Adrian Broner. Or not Adrian Broner, I'm sorry. He beat Robert Guerrero and retired him for the moment back in 17. But he had taken I think it was a 21-month or 19-month layoff going into that fight. And when he got that quick knockout, it looked like he was back and ready to go. And that he said he wanted to stay at 140. He wanted to move back down to 140 and compete. So I ranked him there, and he was ranked number 3 for me. But he didn't fight at all. Another long layoff for this kid, and he's still only 29, which is impressive. I didn't realize he was that young because all the time he's wasted the last couple of years. But he's got his next fight signed and good to go for, I believe it's February 16th. He's coming back to face John Molina Jr., which is a good fight for him. They're fighting at welterweight. I think he's going to be a welterweight going forward, and, he's 6'2" fighting. After, he's the favorite going in. If Molina pulls off the upset, though, but I think he'll probably win that fight, and then hopefully he stays there, but we just got to wait and see what happens because, it's disappointing. This guy's entertaining as hell, but February 16th, John Molina, that should be on PBC, should be on Fox Sports, I believe that he's fighting on that card. So next up, among all the let me see. Adrian Broner. Broner came in ranked 4th. He moved down for his first time in a couple years to 140 to take on Mikey Garcia, and he lost in 2017. Heading into 2018, it looked like he was going to stay at 140. But again, weight issues. Weight issues. This guy just could not get it going in 2018 in terms of weight. So he ended up fighting Jesse Vargas. Actually, I take that back. I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank. Broner was on to face Omar Figueroa Jr., and Figueroa pulled out of the fight. That fight was going to take place at 140 in some kind of an eliminator. Broner never said he didn't have trouble making weight, but he had to agree to a 144-pound fight with Jesse Vargas that ended in a draw. Now Broner's, pretty much competing at welterweight. He didn't fight the rest of the year. He's competing at welterweight, and he's challenging Manny Pacquiao in a couple weeks here, January 19th on Showtime pay-per-view for the WBA regular world title. So, yeah, this guy's pretty much been a welterweight. He's kind of flirted with moving back down to 140, but I don't think he has the discipline and I don't think his body agrees with him moving back down. So, we'll see what he does. I'm predicting him to lose to Pacquiao by a convincing decision, but we'll see if he can land a good hard shot, or if he boxes and throws punches, lets his hands go. Maybe he could show us something different, but I don't think he will. Next up is Felix Diaz Jr., former world title challenger. This guy came into it ranked 5th, and Diaz is a pretty solid fighter. I think he's a former Olympian, and he actually took, Crawford. It took Crawford 10 or 11 rounds to stop him in 2017. He fought hard in May of that year against him. He took the rest of the year off. Then he moved up to welterweight officially, and ended up losing in a tournament. It was a WBC held a tournament. He was the highest ranked guy, and it would have led to an eventual title shot. They held an 8-man tournament that I believe is still going on. But yeah, he lost in the first round, got upset by a majority decision. And there's no telling what he's going to do next. The guy's 35 now, so he's older. And really don't know what Felix Diaz is doing, but we'll see how he comes back. Next up is former unified champion Julius Ndongo. He entered the year number 6, coming off that loss to Crawford, in 2017, where he got knocked out on a body shot in August. And, I thought he was going to come back and still be a viable contender at 140. And he ended up on 3 weeks' notice stepping in for Victor Postal to face Regis Prograis. And I thought that was a disadvantage for Prograis going in. And Ndongo, I thought he was going to win. I picked him to win the fight. And it was for the vacant WBC interim title. It probably would have got him into the World Boxing Super Series. And, man, Prograis just mowed over Ndongo, stopping him in only 2 rounds. That was the only fight Ndongo had in 2018. And the back-to-back brutal knockout losses, I dropped them out of my top 10 because of that. Disappointing for a guy just a year and a half ago, unified world titles. So that's disappointing, but hopefully he can bounce back. But he's 35 as well. He's an older fighter. We'll see what he can do. The next guy that's out is John Molina Jr., former world title challenger. He entered the year at number 9. He was coming off a big win over Ivan Redkach, where he knocked out Redkach in a pretty entertaining fight. And he had taken a year off in between fights from 2016 when he got knocked out against Crawford. So I thought he, with his name, and a lot of guys want to fight him because he makes for good fights, and he was coming off a nice win. I thought he was coming and going to get some big fights in 2018, and he didn't end up fighting at all, which was surprising. He is signed on, though, for February 16th, as we talked about, to take on Omar Figueroa Jr. That's going to take place at welterweight. I think that's going to be an entertaining fight because both these guys have had weight issues trying to make 140. Now they get to fight at 147. John Molina's, though, in his twilight of his career. He's 36 now. This is pretty much going to be his last hurrah, in my opinion, unless he really needs some money. But this guy's always entertaining. Make sure you check him out on February 16th, but this will be a welterweight fight. And then the last guy that drops out of the top 10 from last year is former champion Sergey Lipinets. He entered the year ranked, I think I had him ranked 10th last year going into 2018. He was the new IBF champion, but he hadn't really beaten anybody to win the title or prior to that. And then Mikey Garcia decided to fight him in March, and Mikey dominated, pretty much dominated Lipinets, but Lipinets showed a lot of heart, and he fought hard, considering I think he's only about 12 fights into his whole career. So he ended up losing the title on a decision. No shame in that, though. He went 12 with Mikey Garcia, a great pound-for-pound fighter. And then he bounced back in around August and got a decision, I believe, and just to stay active. And he ended up moving up to 147 for that fight because he was upset that the Super Series at 140 didn't take him in as a contender. And there's a lot of guys with lesser names that made the Super Series. So he was upset about that and decided just to move up in weight to welterweight. He got a win already. And now he's got a big fight set for March 23rd on Fox Sports 1. He's taking on former 2-division champion Lamont Peterson. If this guy's going to make a name for himself at 147, which is a wide open division, and there's a lot of PBC fighters, so a big win over Peterson would do him a lot of good. that's a big deal for Lipinets, and I really hope to see, what he can do. He's 29 years old, so he's in his physical prime, and we'll see if he can pull it out against a very game former world champion in Peterson, who's coming off of a long layoff. So that's it for the guys that are out of my top 10 at 140. Like I said, that took 10 minutes to discuss all the guys that are out. So this one's going to take a while. So hopefully you guys hang in with me. Now we look at the top 10. Now I got 3 guys that tied for 9th. I couldn't put one guy over the other based on what they've done. So I kept these guys tied for 9th. We start with former world title challenger Antonio Orozco. Orozco is a guy who had weight issues making 140 and really was inactive a lot the last couple years. He came back and got a decision over a veteran earlier in the year. Nobody really talked about it, really didn't mean much. And then out of nowhere, he ended up getting a title shot at Jose Ramirez for the WBC title. And it was a good time for Ramirez to face a tough undefeated contender like Orozco, who hadn't been around, fighting a lot. But Ramirez pretty much convincingly won, but Orozco showed a ton of heart. He went down twice in that fight, showed a ton of heart, kept fighting back hard. He made the rounds competitive, even though he lost pretty clear-cut decision. But he showed that he can compete, and if he's flowing at a good level, this guy can make a dent possibly in the division at 140. So good performance in defeat and a fight of the year candidate against Ramirez. Hopefully we see him bounce back and see what he can do in 2019. Tied with him for 9th is former 130-pound champion Javier Fortuna. Fortuna missed weight. He had a title shot heading into, and he was ranked as a lightweight coming into the 2018. He had missed weight for the fight with Robert Easter Jr. The fight went on, and he fought Robert Easter very tough, very close fight. He ended up losing a very close split decision. He was really upset that the decision didn't go his way, but because he missed weight, they're not really going to consider you for a rematch after that. So, and Robert Easter said that if he wouldn't have missed weight, maybe we'd be talking about a rematch. So he kind of hurt himself. Then he surprisingly signed on and moved up to 140 to take on Adrian Granados, who's a guy who's floated back and forth between 140 and 147. This guy can fight. I was surprised that he took that fight on, and it ended up being a very competitive fight for 4 rounds. And then he got pushed out of the ring by Granados. It was inadvertent, he didn't mean to do it, Granados, but he got pushed out of the ring, and Fortuna landed hard on the back of his head, and that cost him the rest of the year. He didn't fight for the rest of the year. He's got, I think the WBC ordered him to fight in an eliminator at lightweight, and the talk is that he's going to be moving back down to lightweight, a more natural weight for him. But that hasn't been confirmed because he hasn't, fought there, and because he missed weight, technically was a junior welterweight for his fight against Robert Easter, and because he moved up to junior welterweight in his last fight, I'm ranking him here. But I wouldn't be surprised if he fought here or he moves back down to 140. The only problem for a guy like him, who's a southpaw and got kind of a tricky style, a slick style, there's not a lot of PBC fighters here, and he's a PBC guy. There's not a lot of PBC fighters that are able to fight him. So I think he's better off possibly moving back down to 135, but we'll see. But I do like Fortuna. He showed a lot of heart against Easter. I just hope he gets his weight issues down. And he was really brawling with Adrian Granados, and that kind of surprised me. That dude was a much bigger guy. So hopefully he does something good going forward. And the last guy tied for 9th is new undefeated IBF champion Ivan Beriancic. This guy almost got a big showdown with Mikey Garcia earlier in the year. Mikey had won the title, and Beriancic was the mandatory to face him. And Mikey decided to move back down to 135, and he vacated that belt instead. So, nobody really cared at the time, but Beriancic got put into the World Boxing Super Series to compete for the vacant title against Anthony Yigit of the United Kingdom. And in October, these two guys went at it. And man, his style, he bull rushed Anthony Yigit and just beat the shit out of the guy. And to where Yigit's corner threw in the towel, I think around the 6th or 7th round. But go back and look at the fight. And if you don't, look at least Yigit's face, completely swollen. He got beat down in that fight by Barianchek. I love this guy's style, and he's got a huge fight next. In the semifinals of Season 2 of the World Boxing Super Series, he's taking on Josh Taylor, who's the number 2 seed. He's undefeated. You know, Taylor's a favorite going in. I'm picking Taylor to win that fight, but Barianchek, because of his style, and he's an undefeated Russian fighter, this guy's not afraid of shit, and he proved that. I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled it out. He's definitely got a rugged style. We'll see how he does, but I'm looking forward to that semifinal against Josh Taylor, and I'm hoping that gets announced sometime soon. He wasn't ranked coming into the year, so he's kind of a breath of fresh air among many of those guys here at 140 heading into this year. So hopefully we find out soon when his fight with Taylor is going to be. Excuse me. Okay, next up at number 8, finishing the year at I'm sorry guys, finishing the year at number 8 is let me see, it's former 2-division world champion Rances Barthelemy. Barthelemy was coming into the year coming off a controversial unanimous decision over Kira Relic in 2017, which made him the mandatory for the WBA title. It looked like he was in line to face Crawford next, but Crawford decided to move up and vacate all the belts. So the WBA ordered a mandatory rematch between him and Relic, and the vacant title went on the line in early March between these two. And I honestly thought Barthelemy had overlooked Relic the first time. He got a lucky decision, and I thought this time he was going to outbox him and become a 3-division world champ. And Relic went out there and dominated him again, but even more convincingly. He didn't go down this time in the late rounds. The only shining light that Barthelemy had the whole fight was he scored a body shot that hurt Relic late in the fight, but that was it. But he lost a one-sided decision. And then I believe he came back. Let me make sure here. Yeah, he came back at the end of the year, got a 3rd-round TKO over some nobody at the end of December. So, you know, we're going to see what Barthelemy's capable of. This guy has kind of avoided the tougher competition to win the first 2 world titles. He's beaten kind of B-level at best opposition, and we'll see what he does going forward. He's currently years old, so he really needs to make a splash now and try to show that he belongs. So we'll see what he does at 140 heading into the year, you know, if he's going to make a dent or not. I really wouldn't hold too much out for this guy, though. Okay, finishing the year number 7 is the undefeated WBC champion, Jose Ramirez. He's another guy that wasn't ranked coming into the year. He's very young. He's only 26. He got a crack at the vacant WBC title. That was one of the belts that Crawford gave up. And he took on Emir Imam, who's a very good boxer from New York. And I was predicting Imam to get a close, hard-fought decision, but I wasn't surprised when Ramirez went in with his style and bullied Imam pretty much the whole fight and got a clear-cut decision. He was supposed to fight again, and I guess weight issues from his opponent, and then he ended up fighting Antonio Orozco in September in a Fight of the Year candidate. He scored a couple knockdowns, controlled the action, couldn't finish off Orozco though, but he got a clear-cut decision and retained his world title. Now he's coming back against another tough guy named Jose Cepeda. He just hasn't been very active the last couple years. He's fought for a world title before and had to bail out with an injury after only 2 rounds of that fight. So that's his only loss of his career, Cepeda. So I think this one's going to be interesting. It'll be on ESPN on February 10th. Him and Maurice Hooker went face-to-face after Hooker's successful defense on ESPN back in November. I would love to see that, and then the winner of that take on the winner of the Super Series tournament. So we just got to wait and see. I think good things are ahead for Ramirez, though. He's an undefeated, tough Mexican champion. He's actually from Fresno, and I really like the guy's style. So we'll see how he does going forward. Finishing the year number 6 is undefeated WBO champion Maurice Hooker. He's another guy that wasn't ranked coming into the year. He's in his physical prime at 29. He got a chance to fight for one of the vacant titles that Crawford gave up. And in June, he ended up taking on Terry Flanagan, who's a former lightweight champion and was undefeated coming in. And he went to Flanagan's home country of the United Kingdom, and he got a hard-fought but deserving split decision in that fight, in a fight that they really said wasn't that close. It was just, Flanagan got hometown card from one of the judges, but he got the win, won the vacant title. He didn't become part of the World Boxing Super Series, which was disappointing, but he signed on with Matchroom and Eddie Hearn in the zone. And in November, Saucedo in Saucedo's hometown of Oklahoma. So for a second straight fight, he was a road warrior. After getting knocked down in the second round, he looked great after that, counterpunching, landing big shots, and going toe-to-toe at moments with Saucedo, who's an undefeated Mexican fighter, and he dominated him and stopped him in the 7th round. Impressive decision, or decision win. I've heard talks about him possibly facing Jorge Linares this year, or even former champ Chris Algieri. They haven't confirmed his next fight yet, but I hope it's coming soon, and I hope him and Jose Ramirez can agree on a unification bout. And like I said, the winner faced the winner of the Super Series late in the year. But we'll see. But I like Hooker. Very talented, undefeated, good boxer, got some pop. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. And honestly, I think Linares is making a mistake facing off against Hooker, because I think Hooker will beat him. But we'll see. You know, he's got some big fights ahead of him, fighting for DAZN, and we'll see what Eddie Hearn puts in front of him. Okay, finishing the year number 5 now. We break into the top 5, and that is former WBA champ, or actually the current WBA champion, Kiro Relic. Coming into the year, Relic was a former challenger, but he had gotten robbed in May of 17 against Barthelemy. They ordered a mandatory rematch, but they waited for the WBA title to become vacant from Crawford because he was the undisputed champ. It did, and in early March, they made this a title fight. Again, the rematch with Barthelemy, a title fight. Again, I thought he was going to lose the fight going in. I really did. I thought Barthelemy was overlooking him the first time around, and that's why he got a gift decision, Barthelemy did. And the rematch, I thought Barthelemy was going to outbox him in. Like I said, Relic went out and dominated him in the rematch with ease, and scored a one-sided decision and became the new world champion. So big win, and that got him into the World Boxing Super Series, where he made his mandatory defense in the quarterfinals against former champion Edward Troyanovsky. Troyanovsky fought him tough, but Relic was just the better of the two. He worked him and got a nice clear decision win, got a unanimous decision to retain the title. He's 29 years old in his physical prime, so we'll see what he does in the semifinals. He's lined up to face the top seed, though, Regis Prograis. I think he's going to lose his title, but he's tough. He comes straight forward, and as long as he can take Prograis's power, I think he can test Prograis, and I'm looking forward to that semifinal. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets upset. Hopefully that semifinal gets announced soon, but I do like Kiro Relic. He's a tough-ass fighter. Okay, coming in now, number 4, finishing the year 4th, is, let me see here, is former world champion Victor Postal. Postal came into the year, he was actually ranked 2nd for me coming into the year, but he only fought once in 17 after losing to Terrence Crawford in 2016. Hasn't been a very active guy. Part of that is because people do not want to fight him. They do not sign up to fight this guy. He's tall, and he throws a lot of punches and can take a punch. He's the last guy that went 12 rounds with Crawford, went the distance with him. So, you know, tough guy to beat here. Josh Taylor decided to face him, and he was actually supposed to face Regis Prograis and had to back out of that with an injury. And then he decided to take on Josh Taylor and went to Scotland to face Taylor in Taylor's home country. And he fought hard. It was a really good, hard-fought battle. He got knocked out late in the fight. He got up. He finished the fight. The scorecards were a joke. They scored nearly a shutout for Taylor, but even Taylor admitted the fight was a lot closer than the scorecards read. But that performance got him, even though he lost, it got him, the Super Series offered him the alternate position. So right now, he came back. He got a win later in the year, a decision win against some nobody. But right now, he's an alternate. So if somebody gets hurt, he's the one that's going to step in, and he's definitely a viable contender. And I hope I'm not hoping for that to happen, but I hope he gets some decent competition after the Super Series is over. But I wouldn't be surprised if he stepped in and filled somebody's shoes. But I do like Postal. He's just, he's getting up there. He's 34 now. He's a veteran, so he really needs to try to get at least a contender's bout to move into a title shot. this year. He needs to try to get a fight like that or something so he can make a splash sometime soon, because, again, he's 34, so he's up there in age. Next up, at number 3, is the undefeated WBC interim champion, Regis Prograis. This guy is really, he came out of nowhere. He wasn't ranked coming in. He was an undefeated prospect, a lot of power. And he was supposed to face Postal, as we talked about. Postal had to pull out with an injury. And then on 3 weeks' notice, he took on former unified champ Julius Indongo. Again, I thought this was a mistake. I thought, this was going to be too tough of an opponent. Totally different style than what he was preparing for with Postal. He's facing a southpaw now in Indongo. And, man, he rolled over Indongo with ease. Knocked him out in only 2 rounds, quicker than Crawford did. And that really that gave him the interim title, but it really pointed a lot at, the spotlight on him. In July, he came back and beat some guy named Juan Velasco, who was undefeated, got an 8th-round TKO. And that punched his ticket for the Super Series, where he entered as a number 1 seed. And in the quarterfinals, he took on former world champion Terry Flanagan, who had only lost once. And instead of going for a knockout, he decided to stand there and box Flanagan, and he dominated the action. I wish he would have went after a knockout, but I guess, according to him, he was trying to make a point that he could box too. So, he got a one-sided shutout unanimous decision, and now he's going to be going after his first world title in the semifinal when he takes on Kiro Relic. Relic's a hard-charging fighter, but I think with his power and his 29, he's in his prime, I think he's going to get the win here and go to the finals. He's the favorite to win the whole thing, but we got to wait and see. There's some good fighters here. Hopefully that fight gets announced soon, but I wouldn't be surprised even if he ended up being a potential opponent for Terrence Crawford. But remember, guys, all these Super Series fights are on DAZN. DAZN's showing everything. So tune in and watch this guy fight. He's an American. He's from New Orleans. He's a good fighter. Check him out. See what he's all about. You won't be disappointed. He's one of the future stars of the division here. Okay, coming in now, number 2, finishing the year, is the undefeated top contender, Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor is another guy that wasn't ranked coming into the year. He's young. He's only 27 right now. He came in the year, you just knew his name. He was an undefeated prospect. And then he signed up to take on Victor Postal, which was a big task, but he was fighting at home. And a lot of people were expecting him, if he was on the level to win. And he did. He fought really hard. He actually went toe-to-toe with Postal in a very good fight. And he ended up getting a unanimous decision and even knocked Postal down late. This punched his ticket for the World Boxing Super Series, where he ended up taking on Ryan Martin, an undefeated but unknown American. And he dominated Martin. He was the number 2 seed going in. He got a 7th-round TKO in that fight. And now he's in the semifinals of the Super Series. He'll be taking on Ivan Baranchyk in the semifinals and getting a shot at his first world title. I got him winning that fight, but Baranchyk is a good, hard-charging fighter and undefeated. He's not afraid to come after Taylor, so it's going to be a good fight. But I got him winning that and going to the finals, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wins the whole thing. He's a very good fighter, as Taylor. So you just got to wait and see. But the weight of that win over Postal really is a major deal, and now he's finishing the year number 2 after not even being ranked. So that's impressive. Now, finally, finishing the year number 1 is former 3-division world champion Jorge Linares, who entered the year as a lightweight. He was actually the WBA lightweight champion entering 2018. And in January, he retained his title with a decision over Mercito Gesta. And then in May, most of you probably saw it on ESPN, this guy showed a ton of heart. He put aside the politics, and he told Oscar De La Hoya and his promoter, hey, I don't care. I'll take a little less money on my side to move over and face off again, and move over to ESPN and face Lomachenko, who's a pound-for-pound best. And I thought he was going to get his ass whipped in that fight. But he was number 1 in the division, and he fought like the number 1 and like a world champion. It was a very good, very close fight. He put Lomachenko on his ass in the 6th round. And then, he ended up getting knocked out on a body shot in the 10th round. But, it was a liver shot. But, man, what a good fight. What a good performance. Really showed that he's on a pound-for-pound level and how talented he really is. He's 33, but it seems like he's blossoming late in his career to show everybody. and he decided he wanted to move up to 140. So he moved up against Miguel Cotto's nephew and dominated him, Abner Cotto, with a third-round knockout. And now I believe he's coming back on the 18th of January here and taking on a veteran 140-pounder, Pablo Cesar Cano. I think he's a former interim champ. I think he's going to win that one. That'll be on DAZN. But this guy said he wants a world title shot, possibly Maurice Hooker later in the year. If he doesn't, he said he'll move back down to 135 for a rematch with Lomachenko. And Lomachenko, I don't know how good of options he's going to have this year outside of fighting for the other world titles, which are held by guys that don't have big names. I think a rematch with Linares would be good for Lomachenko and Linares to prove who really is the better guy, because Linares really showed a lot in that fight, and he really exposed a little bit of Lomachenko, that Lomachenko is not just a one-sided beast that can't be competed against or knocked down. So very strong performance out of Linares, and I really like this guy. Check him out. Check the 140-pounders out. Linares is DAZN. Josh Taylor will be on DAZN next. In the Super Series, Prograis, DAZN. Victor Pastal, you'll see his fights on DAZN because he's an alternate, so he'll be fighting on DAZN. Pure Relic on DAZN next in the semifinals. Maurice Hooker's on DAZN. He's with Matchroom and Eddie Hearn. Jose Ramirez fights on ESPN. Rances Barthelemy, you'll likely see him on Fox if you see anything, because he's with the PBC. Varianchek will be on DAZN next in the semifinals. Fortuna is a PBC fighter, so you could catch him on Fox. And then Antonio Roscoe likely on ESPN. All these guys have platforms, and I will be posting when these guys are fighting. Check these guys out, guys. Boxing is back in a major way. It's very accessible, and you can see a lot of the better fighters. So check it out. I hope you enjoyed this. I know it was over a half hour, but it's worth it if you really want the info. And I'll come back either later today or tomorrow with, let me check the next division. I actually got it right here. It'll be with the 154-pounder super welterweights, which is Jarrett Hurd, Arizlan Lara, Tony Harrison, Jermell Charlo. So check me out, guys. I'll talk to you later. All right, bye.